It's 5 months before the slaughter at Columbine, and the two killers are filmed by a friend in the outfits they will wear on the day of the massacre: long coats and dark glasses. On the left, Eric Harris, 18 years old. On the right, Dylan Klebold, 1 year younger. Two apparently ordinary teenagers who became monsters. It is here in Denver, a city of 3.5 million people in the heart of America, that our investigation begins. We arrive in Littleton, in the southern suburbs. The two killers lived here in this quiet residential part of the city. Dylan Klebold's parents lived here, in a house set back from the street, with a tennis court and private pool. There is a barrier which blocks access. Unsurprisingly, they do not wish to talk to journalists. Dylan Klebold, the shy one with the long hair, was born in 1981. His mother worked with handicapped children, and his father was an engineer. They formed a tight-knit family. At junior school, Dylan Klebold was an able student who worked hard. He was even part of a program for precocious pupils. As small children, he and his friend Brooks Brown were inseparable.
I first met Dylan. It was the first day of first grade, when everyone kind of picks out their best friend instantly, rather than trying to figure out who you like or who you get along with most. It's mostly based on physical. And Dylan and I were both the only tall, gawky, uncoordinated kids. We played Legos all the time when we were kids. So quite often he would come over after school.
A typical all-American sort of kid, Dylan Klebold was in the school's baseball team. He played the drums and spent the summer holidays at scout camp. Brooks Brown's parents often invited Dylan to the house, and they knew his parents well.
They weren't touchy-feely parents like that. It was more clinical, but they cared about their kids. They were there for their kids. You know, they didn't go out drinking. They didn't go out partying. These were parents that were home. They weren't abusive. Tom was anti-war, did not believe in guns. They didn't believe in spanking.
Dylan Klebold was a youngster much like any other, growing up in an uneventful way in an unremarkable white suburb of a wealthy city. Eric Harris, the second killer, arrived in Littleton at the age of 12. His father, Wayne Harris, was in the army and moved around a lot, depending on his transfers. Eric was a solitary boy who hadn't been able to put down roots anywhere. Randy Brown takes us to see the Harris' house, a short distance from his own home.
This is the Harris home with the open garage. Of course, they don't live there anymore. The fact that they both worked gave Eric free run of the house, and they never checked his room and never checked his basement, and got away with a lot.
Eric entered school in 1993. He became friends with Dylan Klebold. 5 years before the massacre, an infernal partnership had already formed. The two friends joined Columbine High School together in 1996, when they were both 15. At the time, Dylan had a friend called Devin Adams. As she approached her 16th birthday, she invited Dylan to her party.
When I first met Dylan, he was very shy. You know, he dressed like a pretty normal kid, jeans, t-shirts. He liked computers more than other kids, but besides that, he was fairly normal. He didn't know how to interact with people without another person there, or something that he could talk about, like a movie or music or something.
Behind the reserved and normal Dylan she was familiar with, Devin would discover a rather darker side.
But he was just kind of goofy, had a really sneaky sense of humor. And he was really morose, and he'd make jokes about things that a lot of people don't make jokes about death and about just really dark things.
Dylan Klebold wrote down his sinister notions in a private diary. This journal has recently been made public by the authorities. Hundreds of pages have been scrutinized and scanned by the police. In them, Dylan Klebold recounted the pathetic details of his adolescent angst. He drew weapons, coffins, and headless warriors. In a twisted, nervous hand, he expressed his bitterness and revealed suicidal tendencies. He said, "My God, I want to die so bad. Not fair. I wanted happiness. I never got it. Let's sum up my life. The most miserable existence in the history of time."
Dylan, the whole time I knew him, never had a girlfriend and never talked about a girl he liked or anything. I mean, I know that there were girls he liked and you could tell when he talked to them or looked at them, but he never had a girlfriend or anything, and it was never something we talked about. It wasn't something he was comfortable talking about.
Dylan Klebold also drew page after page covered in hearts. He was secretly in love with a pupil at Columbine and confided his feelings to his diary. "The one who I thought was my true love is not even a shell of what I want the most. She in reality doesn't even know me. I have no happiness, no ambitions, no friends, and no love." Devon Adams also hung around with Eric Harris.
Eric had a huge crush on me, but I was dating one of his friends, so that wasn't going to happen. Apparently, he blamed me for really taking my boyfriend away from him and Dylan. He blamed me that their group of 3 friends was suddenly torn asunder by this woman. And it's true, I'm the Yoko Ono, apparently.
To my knowledge, even through the end of the shooting, their entire lives, they may have had girlfriends. And I say that very lightly. But they never had any steady girlfriends, and they died virgins.
Dylan Klebold is seen here, filmed by his friend Eric Harris, clowning around for the camera and mocking country music.
Here you are, my good friend Dylan, almost halfway to school.
What's up?
Doing our normal morning ritual, waking up.
Yeah, it happens. It has to. Nice jamming tunes.
It is 2 years before the massacre. The 2 teenagers record their juvenile exploits on film. At this period, they were expressing their aggressive tendencies through banal mockery and cynical pranks. These film documents have never been seen before on British television.
Oh my. What the hell are you doing to my sister's bike?
Klebold and Harris were both intelligent, and they were both keen computer buffs. Their IT teacher at Columbine, Richard Long, took them on as assistants. They worked with him for an hour or 2 every day.
As students, they were very easy for me because it was a class that they were very excited to learn about the new technologies that were coming out, and it was extremely interesting for them. So I had no trouble at all. Yeah, I would say they were definitely above average in my class.
Eric and Dylan, who were perfectly normal, but they were bright. That's it.
Dylan was very smart, and you could just even tell by talking to him, his vocabulary was extensive. He was using, a lot of high school kids just don't use multi-syllable words.
Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris were regarded as geeks and as marginal within the school's social framework. They were even called the outcasts. They didn't play any games or sports. They weren't particularly rich. They weren't particularly good-looking. In the Great Hall at the front of the school, there is an impressive showcase displaying the sports trophies won by Columbine High School, the pride of students and staff alike. But Klebold and Harris were never part of any team. A lack of enthusiasm for sports set them apart from the others.
top at Columbine was it kind of varied between the wrestlers and the football team. There was a couple of guys who were at the top, whether out of fear or out of actually being cool or whatever. There were a couple of guys that were at the top because of that. There were a couple of girls who were at the top because of their situation, how they looked, the money they had, things like that, their grade point average and how much they obeyed the teachers, all that stuff. They were the bottom 2 kids in the entire school, not just out of the senior class. The entire school, they were the 2 uncoolest kids. So they were the losers of the losers, is the way to put it.
In his diary, Dylan Klebold vented his frustration. I see jocks having fun, friends, women, lives, or rather shallow existences compared to mine.
I was pushed against a locker one day by a football player at the school, because he saw me talking to Dylan, and he asked me, why are you talking to that faggot? You dyke? He was just throwing his weight around. He was just being a jerk.
Eric and Dylan did get this every day, and we all knew it. And we all talked about it, and we laughed about it because that's all you can do.
These images were shot 1 year before the massacre took place, and this time Dylan holds the camera. Eric has his back turned, and he is wearing a black t-shirt.
They're walking through the halls, and you can see a wall of jocks coming at them. You get the hell out of the way. It's their hall, their world. And Eric and Dylan didn't get out of the way. And so you see the jocks lay their elbows right into Eric and almost knock the camera out of his hand, and you don't hear them bitching because they're so used to it. They don't go, "What the hell was that?" They go, "Uh-huh," and they just move on because it's so commonplace. So shooting the kids at Columbine apparently is easier than fitting in at the school. That's the biggest lesson to learn about Columbine.
Yes. The sequence continues in the school cafeteria. Eric Harris also kept a diary. He too was fascinated with violence and with weapons. He drew himself as a triumphant warrior on a battlefield. He was interested in Nazism and the Ku Klux Klan, and he was obsessed by genocide. In big capital letters, he wrote, "Kill mankind." The entire diary is a litany of hate. Hate. I'm full of hate, and I love it. I hate people, and they better fucking fear me if they know what's good for them. I'll get revenge soon enough. Fuckers shouldn't have ripped on me so much, huh? Ha. The two friends worked on their video skills and started making small science fiction films.
A few years ago when that first atomic bomb went off near here, they, for some reason, some of these clothes have been just getting pretty radioactive on us, so gotta go take them out.
Yeah, the government here wants us to take out another one of those radioactive clothes infested encampments.
Yeah, we've been doing those for the past few months. They get harder and harder every time. I don't know how we're gonna keep doing this stuff. I think we might have to get some more weaponry.
Dylan and Eric play two Tarantino-style cops. They have fake weapons. This time a friend is filming them, just a short distance from their homes.
Keep your eyes open, keep your fucking fingers on the triggers, shoot anything that moves. It's made of clothes.
According to the script, they have to go down into a basement to recover some radioactive clothing. But the sci-fi tale of intrigue soon descends into farce. The short film we are watching now was made just 5 months before the bloodbath at Columbine. This time, Dylan and Eric play agents of rough justice. They recruit one of their classmates to play a student victim.
People are always making fun of me. I don't like it. I need some help. Oh!
The two teenagers film themselves inside the school. The fictional drama enables them to avenge their actual daily humiliation. The scene is macabre. They are dressed as they will be for the massacre. It's a dress rehearsal.
We can protect you, but for a cost. I'll pay anything. Very well.
In the following scene, the two actors fulfill the contract and execute the person who is victimizing the student.
Thank you guys so much. You saved my life.
You know what? He's kind of getting going. Yeah, he is. We should kill him.
I think he should die.
Alright, this is
At the end, their vitriol explodes to the camera lens.
No, you goddamn piece of punk-ass shit! Do not mess with that friggin' kid! If you do, I'll rip off your goddamn head and shove it so far up your friggin' ass, you'll be coughing up dandruff for 4 friggin' months!
Look, I don't care what you say. If you ever touch him again, I will frickin' kill you. I'm gonna pull out a goddamn shotgun and blow your damn head off. Do you understand, you little worthless piece of crap?
For Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the boundaries separating fiction from reality were no longer clear. The Brown family filmed Dylan Klebold 5 months before the massacre, during rehearsals for the school's end-of-year play. Dylan was the show's sound engineer.
And look, he's smiling. It's not that he hates these people. He's listening to Mrs. C, giving instructions.
And he was going to kill them all.
Yeah.
All of these kids that he's interacting with here, he's planning to murder all of these kids, yet here he is with them. I don't know that it was a reality to him until he actually did it. I don't know.
In his long coat and military boots, Dylan Klebold has adopted the stone-cold killer look for everyday use, a B-movie fashion victim.
As their friendship grew, there was a definite change in both their personality, and Eric and Dylan went very dark, antisocial.
Judy Brown recalls one particular incident that took place 4 months before the massacre. Dylan Klebold was dining in a restaurant with his mother, Sue.
Dylan had on his coat and those glasses. And as Sue looked around the restaurant, she thought people were uncomfortable and were afraid of him. And she said, Dylan, people are afraid of you. With that on, you need to take it off. And he just smiled at her. I think when he got this coat, it's the first time he ever felt power in his life.
Eric Harris's behavior was also becoming more aggressive.
He just became angry, had this outward animosity towards other people. Just like nothing was good enough for him. Nobody was good enough for him. He was better than everybody else. And because he was better than everyone else was stupid, and he hated them.
Eric Harris created a webpage on his internet site entitled, You Know What I Hate. You know what I hate? People who use the same word over and over again, like actually, or fuck you, or bitch. Read a fucking book or two. Increase your vocabulary, you fucking idiots. You know what I hate? Star Wars fans. Get a frickin' life, you boring dickheads. You know what I hate? When there's a group of assholes standing in the middle of a walkway. Get the fuck out of the way, or I'll bring a friggin' sawed-off shotgun to your house and blow your snotty-ass head off. Dwayne Fusilier is an FBI agent who led the investigation into the Columbine High School massacre. 24 hours after the tragedy, he was one of the first to examine what the killers had written. He interprets how they functioned.
Dylan I saw as primarily suicidal, hooking up with Eric Harris. So you had anger and homicidal homicidality on one side and depression and suicidality and emotion on the other side coming together and led to a fatal friendship.
Could Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris's crime have been prevented? Before the tragedy, there were several alarming portents that no one detected. These were, at first, seemingly harmless incidents. One day, Brooks Brown had an appointment with Eric Harris to go to school with him. He was late. His mother recounts what happened.
Eric had thrown an ice chunk into the windshield and cracked the windshield. And I would say that's when things really took a turn for the worse. We called the police over that. The police came to the house. They went to the Harris's home. We did not file charges.
Eric's father, Wayne Harris, asked his son to go and apologize. At the time, Mr. Harris kept a notebook about his son, simply titled Eric. The 23 pages of the notebook form part of a selection of recently published documents. Concerning the broken windscreen incident, his father wrote, "Cracks in windshield. Believing Eric versus wife. Overreaction to minor incident."
Eric's dad and Eric never offered to pay for it, nor did he explained it away, that it was a mistake, that he didn't mean to do it, and that boys will be boys. The dad was upset that we had called the police.
A few weeks later, the whole neighborhood suspected Eric of having put glue into a number of car and house locks and setting fire to trees. Eric Harris denied it, but in his diary, he delighted in his deceit. "I lie a lot, almost constant, and to everybody, just to keep my own ass out of the water. I know that I hate liars, and I am one myself. Oh, fucking well." 2.5 years before the killings, another more serious incident had occurred. The Columbine computer system was hacked into by Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris, and 2 others. They stole a list of codes giving access to students' lockers. Their objective was revenge against one particular student.
And they put a threatening note in his locker saying, I think they might even kill him or something like that, to that effect.
The school decided to suspend all 4 students for 3 days. In his notebook, Eric's father again took his son's part. He wrote, "We feel victimized too. We don't want to be accused every time something happens. Eric is not at fault." Three months later, there was more trouble. Harris and Klebold were caught red-handed, stealing computer equipment from a vehicle. They were arrested by the police and sentenced to community service. They also had to write a letter of apology to the victim. Eric Harris wrote the letter. It was typed on his computer, and it was very polite. "I am truly sorry for what I have done, and for any inconvenience I have caused you, your family, or your company. Respectfully, Eric Harris." But at the same time, he expressed rather different sentiments in his diary. "One big fucking problem is people telling me what to fucking do, think, say, act, and everything else." FBI agent Dwayne Fusilier analyzes the 2 documents.
From his journal, at the same time he wrote that apology letter, and he says, "If I'm free, how come I can't deprive a person of his possessions if he leaves him sitting in the front seat of his van, and that guy should be shot?" I could see in this writing the anger and indignation. How dare authorities hold me responsible for breaking into that person's van? It's his fault. No guilt, no remorse, no internalization of these morals, that this is a wrong thing to do. When I saw particularly those 2 juxtaposed, written about the same incident, one publicly, one privately, that's when I started saying, this is a budding young psychopath here.
Items that appeared on Eric Harris's internet site were even more serious. The entries were discovered by Brooks Brown a year before the massacre. In them, Harris claimed to have made homemade bombs. Atlanta, Folas, Peltro, and Patsy are complete. For those of you who don't know what they are the first 4 true pipe bombs created entirely from scratch by the rebels, Reb and Vodka. Reb and Vodka were nom de guerre. The text ended with a sickeningly portentous threat. Now our only problem is to find the place that will be ground zero. On another page, Harris described his plans for the slaughter. I don't care if I live or die in the shootout. All I want to do is kill and injure as many of you pricks as I can, especially a few people like Brooks Brown. Eric Harris had fallen out with Brooks Brown following the windscreen incident. Extremely anxious about these death threats, his mother, Judy Brown, visited the sheriff's office to discuss them.
The writing was much more violent than it had ever been. Before it was jokes and vandalizing homes and getting back at people, but now it was way over the top. One detective said that he thought he had heard of Eric Harris, that Eric Harris had been in trouble. He went into the other room, he pulled something off the computer and said that there was an Eric Harris that had in fact been arrested for breaking into a van. So at that point he said, "I've got the kid." And I said, "Do you need more information?" And he said, "I don't need it. I've got the kid." He seemed like he was on top of things when we were talking to him.
The very next day, Judy Brown ran into Harris in the shopping arcade.
I was in the grocery store and I saw Eric run in and he slapped a magazine down on the counter, and it was Shotgun magazine, and it scared me because I didn't know he was into guns. Now he's into guns. I was scared to death that he was going to shoot my son. And I wanted to make sure that Detective Hicks was doing his job. And I wanted to make sure that Eric didn't know that we had turned him in, because I didn't want to do anything to upset Eric. Eric was an injustice collector. He never let anything go. So I called Detective Hicks and I left a message, "Please call me. This kid is into guns." I tried to call him back several times and he would never return my call.
It is now 6 months before the shootings. Eric writes in his diary, "Guns. I need guns. Get me some fucking firearms." The 2 apprentice killers' problem was that they were still minors. It was therefore illegal for them to buy firearms. To get around the law, they asked an adult girlfriend to help them. 5 months before the massacre, they got hold of 2 sawn-off shotguns, a 9mm rifle, and some ammunition. I am fucking armed. I feel more confident, stronger, more godlike. I have confidence in my ability to deceive people. Hopefully, I'll make it to April. We have guns. We fucking have them, you sons of bitches. Ha! It's all over now. The point of no return. March 1999, and 1 month to go. Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris go to the forest with friends for firing practice.
Yeah, take a look at that. That was my ghetto gun. That's a fucking slug!
Imagine that in someone's fucking brain.
And it hurt my wrist like a son of a bitch.
I bet so.
Holy shit!
Guns are bad. When you saw them off and make them illegal, bad things happen to you. Just say no to sawed-offs.
No, no, no.
Harris and Klebold prepare their plan of attack. They draw the school and the refectory, sketching out where they will place the bombs. These 2 black dots represent the columns where they will place their sports bags containing 2 propane bombs. Eric notes that at 11:15 the cafeteria is at its fullest, with some 500 students in there. Their notebook is full of practical details for organizing the murders. It lists what still needs to be done: obtain jerry cans of napalm, buy bullets, fill the petrol tanks. This sketch outlines how they will carry a maximum number of weapons between them. Eric Harris writes in his diary, "Once I finally start my killing, keep in mind there are probably about 100 people max in the school who I don't want to die. The rest must fucking die." The 20th of April, 1999. The big day. Hitler's birthday, as it happens. Eric Harris notes the timing. 5 o'clock, get up. 6 o'clock, meet Dylan Klebold. 7:15, he goes to buy propane and I go get gas. 9 o'clock, put the bags in the car. 11 o'clock, go to school. Klebold continues in his own diary. Park the cars filled with bombs for 11:18. Get out, climb the steps, wait. When the first bombs go off, attack. Have fun. Their aim is to kill hundreds of people. The cafeteria is packed. Surveillance cameras film them. Frank DeAngelis, the headmaster, is present that day.
They brought in the bombs, and then they were standing outside with the anticipation that once the bombs exploded, kids would be running. And when they ran outside these doors here, then they would kill them as they came out. So they had this elaborate plan to kill as many people as possible.
The propane bombs, however, are badly made and fail to explode. It's 11:20 a.m. Richard Castaldo, who was 17 at the time, is having lunch with his girlfriend, Rachel Scott, on the lawn outside. He sees the two boys coming towards him.
Just started, firing at us, and then it hit. It was kind of one big spray, but it hit Rachel first, and then it hit me right after. I heard her crying and stuff a little bit, and I kind of remember asking her if she was all right, which I kind of knew she wasn't, but I didn't really know what else to do, and I felt like I should, say something.
Hit in the spine, Richard Castaldo is today paraplegic. His friend Rachel did not survive. She was just 17 years old.
Klebold and Harris are standing here with automatic weapons, firing down, and that's where they shot the kids here with Danny Rohrbach dying.
In the cafeteria, terrified by the gunshots, students hide under the tables. Pandemonium breaks out. Richard Long, the computer studies teacher, is one floor below in the library. He watches the assassins.
I was very surprised that I saw Eric there holding the gun initially, because I thought, my gosh, that's Eric. I know that kid. He can't be doing that.
Patty Nielsen, an art teacher, comes face to face with Harris and Klebold.
I saw a figure in a trench coat facing the other way, and it seemed like he had a gun, and I heard the gunfire, and my thought was that they were doing video productions because they have, video classes. And I thought that's, a really bad idea for them. I'd never crossed my mind that it was a real gun. It just didn't cross my mind. So I went heading out there to tell them to stop. He turned around and he looked straight at me and he held the gun and he fired it. He smiled first, and then he shot the gun. It was Eric Harris, and I got shot in my shoulder, and the bullet just grazed it. But, at the moment, it hurt a lot. I didn't know exactly what was wrong.
Patty Nielsen ran into the library to hide.
I dialed I stood with the phone and I continued to yell at the kids to get down.
At 11:24, the shooting has been going on for 8 minutes. Here is a recording of Patty's emergency call.
I'm a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun, and the school is in a panic, and I'm in the library. I've got students down under the tables, kids. Heads under the tables. I do not know who the student is. Okay. I saw a student outside. I was in holding out here, God. He turned the gun straight at us and shot, and my God, the window went out. Oh, God. Stay in the line. Oh, God.
The headmaster, Frank DeAngelis, is also confronted by the killers.
What was happening is the gunman, instead of pursuing me, ended up coming after Dave Sanders, who was coming up the staircase here, saw the gunman, turned around, and then the gunman stopped and shot Dave in the back. And so that stopped the gunman from coming after me, so actually Dave saved my life, and it cost him his life coming down here.
Dave Sanders, who had been a teacher at Columbine for 20 years, would die 3 hours later. The murderers return to the cafeteria and throw 2 small homemade bombs. At 11:29, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris enter the library, where Patty Nielsen and 40 students have taken refuge. The carnage is about to commence.
Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold walked around. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them. Looking under the tables, saying cruel things. I'd hear them taunt somebody, and then I'd hear them shoot. And I think, you know, they just killed that kid.
Well, you get to hear Eric and Dylan shooting and executing people and laughing about it. And in real time. I mean, it's them actually doing it.
They just made fun of people, made fun of the kids. You know, they made racial remarks. They made fun of somebody's glasses. They said somebody was pathetic. Just mean. Just mean.
Eric is much more stoic. He does laugh about a few things, but Dylan's having the time of his life, like it's a party. And he's killing people like he's a party. I mean, it's unbelievable how happy he is. He's giddy about doing it.
When he walked past and then came back, I thought he was going to shoot me. Where I was where a chair should push in on rollers. He took the chair, he picked it up, and he just slammed it on top of the counter right above my head. I don't know if he saw me or not. I don't know if he was doing that to scare me. I don't know.
These pictures were filmed by the police several hours later and revealed the full extent of the bloodbath. Hundreds of shots were fired. The victims were cowering behind desks. In 7.5 minutes in this library, Klebold and Harris killed 10 people and wounded 12 others. The 2 killers return to the cafeteria one last time and throw another bomb. Then Eric Harris takes up a position on the stairs and fires at the sports bags containing the bombs. He tries very hard to make them explode, but in vain. Dylan Klebold throws a Molotov cocktail and the cafeteria erupts in flames. The killers, as if in a daze, take in the scale of the butchery. The Columbine massacre has lasted a total of 50 minutes. At 12:08, Klebold and Harris commit suicide in the library, each with a bullet to the head. The descriptions of the assassins spread like wildfire through the media and among the students.
They described one as being 5'9", 5'10", wearing a trench coat. And when I heard that description, I immediately knew it was Eric. I just knew. He's the only person I could think of at the school who could do that.
The next thing they mentioned, Dylan Klebold, and that floored me. And my brain kind of shut off the rest of the day.
The killers' identities are confirmed on television.
It's my friends killing my friends. And that's what it was. It was this horrible war zone. And you didn't know which side you were on.
Parents come to meet their children as the school is evacuated. Buses shuttle between the school and a park where the families gather, united in shock. Tom Mauser arrives at the park to look for his son, Daniel.
When we first got there, they said, there's one more school bus coming with students. Well, the school was a very short distance away. It shouldn't take too long for that bus to get there. I waited and waited, and I said, where is that school bus? Where is this school bus? And then someone's child came in, and I heard him say, I heard in the news, there's 25 students that were killed. I said, that bus should have been here by now. I left. I had to be with my family at that point. There was no last school bus. They were wrong. There was no last school bus.
Tom Mauser would later learn that his son was one of the 13 victims. Daniel Mauser was 15 years old. He was shot at point-blank range as he hid beneath this desk in the library. The next day, Brian Rober was still without news of his son. He waits anxiously at home for the police to call. At 9 in the morning, still no news. He opens the newspaper and sees this photograph.
There was a picture of my son lying dead on the sidewalk. That was our notification. The sheriff, John Stone, and the district attorney, Dave Thomas, they never contacted us. The coroner never contacted us. We learned from a picture in the paper.
America goes into shock. The day after the massacre, the controversy begins. Why did the police take so long to intervene? Harris and Klebold killed themselves at 12:08. The police found their bodies in the library 3 hours and 15 minutes later. The victims' families are still unable to comprehend how this could be.
Very simply, this was a failure of command in the chaos of what was going on. The command didn't do their job, and no policeman had the courage on their own to just go, the hell with these rules, I'm going to go in and rescue these kids. So not one of these policemen, and they all know it, had any courage at all. That's the fact of it.
Faced with such accusations, the police insist that the intervention was extremely delicate. The Special Forces Anti-Terrorist Squad had even been called in as reinforcement. This police officer took part in the operation and justifies the time that was lost.
There could have bombs that are motion sensitive inside the backpacks, and as we entered into the library, one of these could go off.
Randy Brown has archived all the evidence from the investigation, all 45,000 pages of it.
These are the books.
But he is still fighting to obtain a crucial document, the key element missing from the case file. This is a video of Harris and Klebold's testimony, in which the two teenagers explain the motives behind their action. But the police are still refusing to make these videotapes public.
We saw the basement tapes. They're tapes made in Eric's basement and Dylan's room, but it's Eric's basement essentially, so they're called the basement tapes.
The 3-hour tape has only been shown once, at the beginning of the investigation. Those who saw it were deeply affected.
That hit me in the basement tapes was the fact that Eric is running his gun, called Arlene, over a pile of pipe bombs, back and forth. And he's talking casually, and Dylan said, I believe he said, my uncle is going to be really upset. And he's talking about a Jewish holiday. And Eric says to him, you're Jewish? And Dylan says, yeah. And he starts saying, I think he starts saying half or fourth, and he starts, and then I think for a second there he thinks, Eric's going to turn on me. It's just a very strange thing. Very strange. And then, I don't know, Eric says something like, wow, that's too bad.
Eric Harris certainly wanted to be infamous. They said that very clearly in one of the basement tapes, that this is going to be the biggest incident ever. And they speak condescendingly of other school shootings where the person shot, quote, only 3 or 4 people and then stopped and gave up. They also mentioned that when a movie, and their phrase is, when they make a movie about this, they hope that either Quentin Tarantino or Steven Spielberg direct it because they could get it just right. So I certainly believe, because Eric says it, he expected to become infamous from this.
For everyone, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris's act of horrendous folly remains a terrible and inexplicable mystery. How could 2 teenagers, having fun, massacre 13 of their fellow students in cold blood, utterly without remorse?
Coming up next, investigators use DNA from a victim's son to help crack another cold case file.